So for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is James Meggs. I'm the VP of Sales for the iWin real estate team, and I've been working with Erwin and Cherry for, oh God, I don't even know how many years now, going on close to 10 years, I think. So Erwin has asked me to moderate today's call, where we have Cherry, who's going to take us through a bunch of the different government programs that have become available through COVID-19. And then just quickly, for those of you that don't know Cherry, Cherry is an accountant. She's been an accountant for almost 15 years. She's my personal accountant, and her focus is on real estate accounting. And she's been focusing on and been a huge help to many investors and small landlords across Ontario and even Canada, because tax rules are, countrywide as opposed to provincially wide for a while. So. And we wanted to take the opportunity today to, share a lot of the programs that are out there with you, and then answer any questions that you guys might have. So we're going to be touching on the programs that are available to small businesses, if there's any programs available to our tenants, and then investors specifically. And like I said, answer any questions. If you do have questions, there is a Q&A button at the very bottom. You can put your questions in there, and I'll raise them up with Cherry when the time comes. We're going to hopefully end this at around 1 o'clock, so we have about an hour to discuss on all this stuff. And then lastly, before we really get started, I'm just about to launch a poll. The poll is going to have a couple questions. Just kind of generic ones about the real estate market, and then at the end there's a question there that says if you want somebody from our team to follow up with you after, we'll be happy to have a one-on-one call where we can answer any questions that you guys might have over and above what we're talking about today. So poll has been launched, and with that, I'll turn it over to Cherry to try and to start talking about some of the new changes and programs that are available.
So James, you're not going to ask me questions because it's usually a conversation that I am having.
I know. Okay, so I guess I have some questions personally, and hopefully that these will resonate with a lot of the other investors out there. So a lot of investors have been approaching me since I'm a realtor and I'm a coach to a lot of my clients about there's been a lot of threats from tenants in Toronto about rent strikes and stuff like that. So far, I know in speaking to our property managers, we haven't really seen a big increase in tenants that haven't paid rent. But for us as small business owners and landlords, what are some of the programs and stuff that become available for specifically, I guess, tenants? Is there anything that's become available as far as rent relief or anything else that we can share with our tenants to help them ensure that they're able to pay their rent on a monthly basis?
Good news and bad news at the same time. The good news is that Doug Ford heard from small landlords, and he's trying to push the federal government to give some rent relief. But as of right now, the federal government basically said no. Ontario or the province is supposed to help the small landlords. So how would you be able to help yourself in that case? Specifically, a lot of tenants are being laid off in my EO, in my entrepreneur community. A lot of small businesses right now are coming down from like 16 employees to 0 employees, or to 1 or 2 employees. So a lot of people are being laid off. A couple of my tenants were laid off as well. So for those tenants that are laid off, and assuming that they do not have any other income, as in they don't receive any more self-employed income or employment income for over $1,000 a month. So you can still work part-time, but it has to be sitting under $1,000 a month. Then you would be able to apply for something called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. And that is $2,000 every 4 weeks from the government. The application is super easy to go through. Some of us would have gone through this application already. The money would be, if you provide the bank account, the money would be deposited to your bank account or your tenant's bank account the next, essentially in 3-4 business days. Now, for landlords that are also student rental landlords, I am a student rental landlord. I think there are a lot of issues out there with respect to renting out your properties or collecting rent from the students who would normally work in the summer, there is that program that just got released for application. I mean, it was announced last week, but it is now in effect for allowing the students to apply today, as of today. May 1st is the post-secondary student benefit. This post-secondary student benefit, each post-secondary school student can qualify for up to $1,250 a month from the month of May all through August. Now, if the student is willing to take care of a disabled person or caring for someone, so it could mean that that person is caring for younger family members, kids, and all that, you can receive, that student would be eligible to receive up to $1,750 a month, which is quite substantial. Now, for those students who also volunteer over the summer, they would then also be eligible to receive anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000, depending on the hours that they volunteer. And during this time, while collecting all these benefits, they would still be able to work for someone else as long as they don't earn over $1,000 from their day job. It would not affect their collection of these benefits. So it's pretty awesome program out there for students specifically. There is some program available for regular tenants as well. And there is also student grants for eligible students in the future, but right now it is not there yet. It doesn't solve your immediate problem. These are the programs that solve your immediate problem.
Cool. Now, just a quick question. I hadn't seen anything on this, but have they announced a duration on how long they will continue to pay the benefit, or is it until like state of emergency is lifted, or is it kind of going on a month-by-month basis?
So the benefit is available until end of September. The CERB, the $2,000 a month, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, it is available until then. I do believe that you have to reapply every single month, kind of like EI, because you know, like if you start working for someone, hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll see that the government will allow people to go back to their normal routine. And so they would start working again, and they would start collecting their paycheck. If they collect their paycheck, they would not be eligible to claim the benefit.
Gotcha.
Now, of course, on top of that, there is government claim that is government claim that it is their credit, but there is mortgage deferral program available for those of you who want to take advantage of it. I have deferred one of my mortgage for the property that I'm not receiving rent on. I didn't defer all of them just because I don't want to make my future principal payment higher than what it is right now to affect my future qualifying opportunity. We're also in the middle of refinancing, and that's why we don't want to do anything. There are also deferral programs available from various cities across Ontario. I know that you can do interest-free deferral for a few months, something that you guys can consider as well as landlords.
Have you heard how that process works for some of the various banks? I know I've heard a whole bunch of different stories, but just curious, what does the process of mortgage deferral look like? And have you heard kind of what the overall impact is cost-wise to the average investor?
I haven't really heard a lot about the extra cost. I do believe that if you are taking advantage of the program, like my situation, I can speak from my personal experience, is super simple. I email my rep at the bank, and he forwards my email because mine is a small business advisor. He forwarded to a personal advisor, and then who call me back a day later and say, hey, you want to defer it? I already defer it for you. Here's the confirmation for deferral.
Cool. I guess it's different bank to bank.
Yeah, from Scotiabank, recently I logged in, and it says that if you want to defer, here is the link to defer it. So there is online application involved. I've heard multiple times that people can apply online but didn't get a call back. I think the request they have handled the majority of the requests. Right now I believe that the turnaround time is a lot faster.
Right. And I did notice that because when it was first announced, I made a call, and a lot of the other investors I talked to had said they had the same experience while sitting on hold for, 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, and that was regardless of what you were calling in about. It didn't matter if you were calling for deferral, you were still having to wait, right? So I had to call in to a bank yesterday just to reset my password because it wasn't working online, and I was able to get through in 15 minutes. So it's pretty clear that they were able to address the vast majority of that. Somebody had a good question, actually, just to go back quickly to the students. Somebody says, I heard I can hire a student and the government will pay 100% of their wage. Do you have any details on this? And is this true or not?
Yeah, it is absolutely true. So one of our common friends, James, one of our common friends operate a day camp, summer camp. And she hired 100% of she hired for her teacher in the summer that help teach the kids. They're all from students. They're all students that are in the program that they're teaching, the language program that they're teaching. But the problem is that I was looking into it myself. You can get paid, reimbursed 100%, I think up to the minimum wage, which is about $15 per hour. The application would have to be submitted by the end of February. So it's I think before you applied, you only get a percentage of it reimbursed. Now you get 100% of it reimbursed. But the catch is that you would have applied before the COVID-19. You wouldn't have thought about it. I didn't think about it to apply for it. That's the reason why it's not really available to everyone. It's more like a publicity thing that they are extending the program. They're not really extending the application deadline. So, unfortunately.
So it's just for past applicants. Anyone applied prior to February would now get 100% of it covered as opposed to before. What was the program before? Was it a certain percentage of the wage was covered?
Yeah, it's only a certain percentage, and it's only specifically for certain period. I think it's up to October. Now it's extended all the way to February. Don't quote me on it because I read about it, and then it doesn't apply to any of my clients. It doesn't apply to me. Right. So I'm just like, okay. No,
you're right. No point.
Yeah. So there are other programs available as well. Do you want me to go through it?
Sure.
So specifically, let's talk about landlord. For landlord, a recent program was announced called Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. For those commercial landlords, so small landlords that rent out to a small business, the government is essentially giving you a 50% loan on condition that you are going to reduce the rent to the small business owner, your tenant, by 75%. Government gives you 50%, your tenant pays you 25%, so you get 75% of what you would normally get, but you get 75%. The criteria to apply is that the business has to be non-essential service. So if it is essential service, accounting firm would be considered essential service. I know it's weird, but accountants are apparently very important. So it is considered essential service. Real estate brokerage would be considered essential service. So it doesn't fall under this criteria. That's number one. That's number one criteria. Second criteria, to qualify for the program, you would also need to, your tenant would also need to show a decline in revenue, either year over year, March over March. So March 2020 over April 2020 over April 2019. That you would have to show a decline in revenue by 70%, or your tenant would have to show it. Otherwise, you would not be able to apply, don't qualify at all. So basically, and then the monthly rent has to be less than $50,000. I don't think any of us would have that issue on this call, but then just in case, there would be a future program that come out to address bigger businesses that pay more than $50,000 of rent per store. Now, in our situation, there isn't. Now, so the government is going to pay you the 50%. tenant is going to pay you 25%, you will have to eat the 25%. That's how it works. You need to sign an agreement saying that I'm waiving your rent for 75%. Then next by mid-May, so by May 15th, the program will be released for application. And technically speaking, they would release the loan directly to the bank. They're not releasing the loan to you. So they are releasing the loan directly to the mortgagee of your property. If you don't have a mortgage, that's a different story. But if you don't have a mortgage, they encourage you to call CMHC directly to sort out how this payment can be allocated. I guess they are trying not to give you the money directly. They are trying to give the money to the vendors that you need to pay.
So would you still, if you didn't have a mortgage, would you still be eligible for the money though?
It sounds like you would. So they would pay the money to the utility company or other vendors like property tax first, because you still need to pay
Gotcha.
for the property tax, right? So
right, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So that's a second program available for landlord specifically, but it's only for commercial landlords.
Right.
Now,
And so what about, sorry, did you have anything else on, yeah, I was gonna say, so are there any other programs for, I know we talked about small landlords and then now commercial landlords. Is there anything else, or, because there's a little bit of an overlap sometimes with small landlords and then business owners. So I didn't know if you wanted to segue into small business owners and if there's anything else available for them, or is that pretty much all we already covered?
No, small business owners, there are a few other programs available for small business owners. When I say small business owner, it means that you own a business. Now, for a small business owner, if you are a small business owner that has a payroll expense of $20,000 or more in 2019, you would be able to qualify to borrow from the government for $40,000 under the Canada Emergency Business Account. You can apply it through your bank. It's interest-free, but you need to at least show the payroll of $20,000 in 2019 to qualify to apply. The second criteria is that you also need to have a business bank account. So for some of my clients who are self-employed, real estate agents mostly, they have the payroll of $20,000, but they don't have a business bank account with the bank before March 1st. So they are unable to apply for the Canada Emergency Business Account. Some of my clients had like $100,000 of payroll in 2019, but they can't get help from the government for this $40,000 interest-free loan simply because they don't have a business bank account. It's kind of silly, but government hasn't come out with anything to rectify this loophole that is not even considered a loophole, this shortfall of the program. Now, if you are eligible to get this $40,000, the $40,000 is interest-free. It's a loan. It's interest-free until December 31st, 2022. So you would then be able to just use the $40,000 at your will in the business. So you're required to declare that you're going to use the $40,000 in the business. And out of the $40,000, $10,000 could be waived. So completely free money, essentially. To you if you are repaying the loan before December 31st, 2022.
Cool.
The application is super easy. You apply it through your online business bank account. You go to the business bank that you normally bank with, and then you apply through there. The money is deposited to my business bank account in about a week. So it's a pretty cool program. If you qualify, by all means, I would encourage you to take advantage of it.
Now, I had a question myself. You touched on an interesting point. So there might be a lot of small business owners that are self-employed and running their businesses out of non-business accounts. So yeah. Has there been any talk of opening it up to, or is there a way to use, if you had a business account for another purpose, I'm just thinking of people like real estate investors that might have a small business where they're running it out of a regular account and hold corporations in a business account for their real estate. Is there any crossover? Is there any way that you think that people could still potentially get that loan?
Unfortunately, because when you submit the information, when you apply for the loan, what they do is that they ask for your payroll number,
Gotcha.
payroll account number. They also match to what you file for 2019, because the T4, if you have employees, there is a filing deadline end of February to file the T4. They do the back reference check. The 4 or 5 days turnaround time is that they are matching against what they have in their system to make sure that you did have a T4 file. And the bank account also provide the information that you are the person, your account is with the company that you're trying to apply it for. So I don't think there is any funny thing that we can do. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about businesses that rely solely on contract employees that don't have legitimate full-time employees?
They are left in this whole program, the entire program.
Gotcha.
So I'm also going to go through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy that is 75% that reimburse the qualified business owner to pay the employee for about 75%, up to $847 per week. And there is a temporary 10% wage subsidy that are available as well. I mean, all these would only be available if you have a payroll account open before March 15th. So if you don't have a payroll account open before March 15th, you would not be able to qualify. Now, so let's just quickly go through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, 75%. So to qualify for the subsidy, your business must demonstrate a decline in revenue. You can calculate revenue decline using cash or accrual basis. So basically, to qualify, there are 3 periods that you can qualify for the subsidy. The first period is March 15 to April 11th. The second period is April 12th to May 9th. And the period number 3 is May 10th to June 6th. Now, to qualify for period 1, you need to be able to show a decline in your revenue by 15%. So how do you show that? You have to show it in the month of March. So if you compare your March revenue, March 2020, with either you can choose to compare it by March. You can choose to compare March 2020 revenue with March 2019 revenue, or you can choose to compare March 2020 revenue over average of January and February, average of the revenue of January and February 2020. Now, once you choose one of them, you have to stay with the same thing for all 3 periods. You can flip-flop. Now, for a fact, my accounting business, because the government extended the deadline, my March is way under compared to last year. So I would qualify based on March 2020 to March 2019 for based on the decline in reduction. So I would qualify for period 1's reimbursement. Now, for period 2 reimbursement, because I qualify for period 1, the government wants to make sure that you have it in your account. It's easier for you to plan. So they also said that as long as you're qualified for period 1, you also qualify for period 2. Now, to qualify, if you don't qualify in period 1, some of my clients don't qualify in period 1, but they qualify in period, they could re-qualify in, we try to re-qualify in period 2. To qualify for period 2, you need to show a decline in revenue for April, the month of April, by 30%. Now, no longer 15%, it is 30%. Now, depending on how it works, you can choose to compare your April revenue 2020 over April 2019 revenue, or you can choose to compare the revenue between April 2020 and average of January and February 2020. Now, if there is a decline in 30%, you would then automatically qualify for period 2 and period 3's reimbursement subsidies. You only need to qualify for period 2, then you would then be able to qualify for period 2 and period 3 at the same time. Now, if you still don't qualify for period 2, but in May, your revenue really dropped, then you can use your May period to qualify for period 3. And if you use your May period to qualify for period 3, you need to show a decline in that revenue for 30%. Now, what do you get if you qualify? If you do, what you get if you qualify is that the government is going to give you 75% wage subsidy per employee up to a maximum of $847 per week. So $847 per week is quite a bit. So 847 divided by 75%, multiplied by 52 weeks, that's about $58,700 of annual income. So for anyone that's making over that amount, for any of your employee that is being paid over 58,000, you would then automatically, 58,725, you would then automatically get the $847. It doesn't go up all the way. Even if you pay an employee $100,000, you're still getting the subsidy for $847. The application is open right now as of Monday. I personally applied for it. The program again is apply again in your my CLA business bank account. Sorry, my CLA business account, not your bank account. You do need to set up your pre-authorized debit against your bank account, so the money will be deposited to your bank account. Now, how long does it take? I don't know. On CLA's application website, it says it will take 7 to 10 business days to process the application. So I would imagine that after 7 to business days, you would see the money in your bank account. Now, if you, it's worthwhile mentioning that if you have a payroll account and you qualify based on everything, and now your wife was not working in your business, can you add your wife into the business? Now, so they have a special criteria prohibiting you hiring your family members after March 15. So if you just hire them after March 15, you would not be able to get any subsidy for it. It kind of sucks, but that's how it works for the program. Now, let's say you don't qualify for this 75% wage subsidy. There is still that 10% wage subsidy that everyone qualifies. As long as you have a payroll account before March 18, 2020. This 10% wage subsidy has a cap of $13.75 per employee, up to a maximum of $25,000 total per employer. It applies to everyone who has a payroll account, including my nanny. Basically, the way that you qualify is easy, and the way that you take advantage of that 10% is basically reducing the amount of source deduction that you need to pay to CLA. Now, there are other options available as well, as much, for example, work sharing program with the employee and the government. You need to apply and wait for 2 weeks for their approval. So then essentially you pay the employee for the work that you want them to do, the number of hours, and then the employee would get paid from DI partially for the rest of the hours that they're not working. So that's the work sharing program. Wow, I've been talking for, I feel like, forever.
That's okay. I had a question for you in there. So for the wage subsidy, would those employees still be eligible for EI as well? So they would be getting the EI plus whatever the wage subsidy is provided by the employer?
No. So the employer would be paying these people directly, because the employer is essentially, it's essentially replacing people getting fired with the 75% wage subsidy.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I heard one of the small business owners I was talking to was talking about how most of his employees were getting EI, and then the company was topping up. So they were paying the extra 20% or whatever it was to make sure that they were getting at least a good portion of their wage. I was just curious if there was a mix and match plan or how it would work, but I guess not.
Well, they are supposed to, so all the qualified small business owners, they are supposed to rehire their employee. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen headlines of Air Canada rehiring the entire fleet of employees,
Gotcha.
Topping up to 75%, and then they are not going to contribute the other 25%. All employers are encouraged by the government to top up the 25%, but they don't have to.
Right. So it's just to keep everyone employed instead of laid off and relying on EI. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so somebody did have a question about the CEBA. They're saying, does it apply to dividend income? This person pays themselves through a corporation through dividends instead of salary using a business bank account.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't apply to dividend income even as at this point, it has been, the CBA has been open for application. The $40,000 loan has been open for application for probably several weeks now. The government hasn't come out to say that it's open for people who pay themselves dividend or subcontractor as well. So it hasn't changed. Not sure if they would ever change it.
Okay, cool. Another question here. So if you are a self-employed professional and have a business account and you have enough revenue to cover expenses and staff payroll, but not enough for your own withdrawals for living expenses, so not a dividend, so this is whatever I guess the small business owner is paying themselves, would that business qualify for the $40K loan?
If you have a payroll account, you would qualify for the $40,000 loan. If you have a decline in decline in revenue, you would also qualify automatically for the 75% if you qualify for the 15% and 30% decline. If you don't qualify for that, at least you would qualify for the 10% wage subsidy.
Cool. Another question here, is it possible to convert a contractor to an employee so that the person would be eligible for CEWS, assuming the employer already has other employees on payroll? I guess that's a very interesting scenario, because you would have, if they have both full-time employees and contractors, it would be more beneficial to convert.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it's beneficial to convert. Now, they said that the program is also available for new hires. So definitely by that definition, you would be able to qualify to claim wage subsidy. Is it worth it to do? It's really up to you. Can you just switch them back to subcontractor after the program is over? It's up to you. At the end of the day, my understanding is that when you file, there is no rule saying that you cannot hire someone temporarily during the duration of this program, and then you lay them off after the fact. Now, what the risk is from doing such an arrangement is that your subcontractor, who may not have been 100% considered as a subcontractor before. So it goes back to the determination whether you're hiring someone as a contractor versus an employee. If you hire someone as an employee, then you're supposed to contribute to CPP and EI, and you also are responsible to do all the source withholding, and then your employee would not be able to deduct anything other than the employment expenses. But if you hire someone as a subcontractor, that person would be allowed to deduct all the business expense. So depending on your arrangement, if the arrangement is borderline between employee and subcontractor, and now you're changing that person to being an employee and qualify for this whole program, and then you turn back and then fire that person, and that person become a subcontractor again, you may run into the problem that CLA will go back and say, hey, like, are you really hiring this person as a subcontractor, or is this person really an employee? So that is the risk that you are running into. And so CLA could potentially look at the year of subcontracting work that this person has done for you and charge you the CPP and EI that you didn't pay. Not saying you would, but there is that small risk that you are exposing yourself to.
Would there be risks also of, contractors are typically not entitled to any anything in terms of when they're terminated, right? So if you now hire that person on as a full-time employee, and maybe your relationship with them changes, if you're trying to lay them off and go back to a contractor relationship, is there a risk that they could fight you on that?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm not a lawyer, but we both attended the same employee seminar. Yeah, there is always that risk. Really, when you run a business, you hire someone, there's always a risk that you could be sued if you lay someone off.
Right. No, I'm sure if you put in a proper enough documentation to support the fact that maybe it's a temporary position, it's full-time employment with benefits or whatever, but temporary, that you might be able to protect yourself. But yeah, I guess you're right. Definitely check with a lawyer.
You just don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how far CLA is going to go after these programs have been released. I'm sure they will do some audits. We just don't know how far they are going to go.
Cool. That's actually leads to another good question. How do you keep track of all this as a business owner or a landlord, and what is CRA going to look for potentially in terms of documentation once this is all done?
So revenue, so depending on the type of program that you have, obviously different program has different type of documentation requirement. For example, for the 75% wage subsidy, as a business owner myself, I would need to be able to show my last year, because I do the March over March comparison. I have a decline of 15%. So I meet that criteria. I need to be able to show the breakdown of my revenue for that March 2019, and then I need to be able to show the same March 2020 revenue. And that would then be able to, we would then be able to see the decline in revenue to qualify for the program. Those are the documentation that you would need. Now, it would be, the only difference is that if you are doing a lot of adjustments in your regularly, because so I do mostly on a cash basis until year end that I would do the adjusting journal entry. But a lot of my clients out there, they're not doing that. They are doing, sorry, they are the same as us. If you have to be careful in terms of the basis that you're using. It has to be consistent year over year. Now, the second thing is with employee, you always need employment contract. You always need to file the T4. Those would have to be kept track of. The 75% wage subsidy, you also need to keep track of how much wage subsidy you give to each employee as well, because at the end of the year, the T4 itself would also require you to fill out a form that provides the amount of wage subsidy that you receive from this particular employee. So these are basic steps, not overly strict, but still you need to keep the basic stuff.
Okay, cool. And then I guess even for something as minimal as the CERB, I'm just thinking from an audit standpoint, if there ever was a CRA audit that said, you know, how can you make sure that that $2,000 a month isn't clawed back? What are you thinking that if somebody's you know, right, kind of tiptoeing the line of that $1,000 is going to be really cut and dry for you to be able to show that to CRA to say, no, I didn't make more? Or like, is there anything else that you can keep? Is it just really bank account records, or are they going to look at, because I'm thinking of two of contractors that, you know, they might have invoices that show different things, and because they're not having stuff taken off. So just wondering if that's any different.
Yeah, it's that the same thing. Like, you need to have your basis, right? The $1,000, it doesn't really show whether it's gross or net. I would assume it is net. So if you need to be able to show that particular income invoice and subtract all the expenses, that would equal the net amount that you qualify. You also need to be able to show all your, you also need to be able to show the bank transactions. It's not ideal. You don't really want to show CRA your bank transactions, but if they do audit you, you need to be able to show that, hey, like, I really did not receive any income that particular month or that particular period that I'm applying for. So it's also important. Bank transaction is one thing. I mean, if for those of you who work for other people, majority of the public out there, you work for other people. So if you work for other people as an employee, it really goes to your bank, your payroll record, right? So payroll record, external documentation that support your position and your application would help a lot as well.
Okay, cool. I know this, you probably can't, nobody can answer this question, but like, just because based on the sheer volume of applications, do you think there's going to be some sort of random audits on people just to see if, you know, there have been people who've been claiming it when they really are making income?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, government already came out to say that there will be significant impacts, and they have an address for, especially for the $2,000. If you don't think you qualify and you want to return the check, you can return the check at no additional cost. There is an address on their website that you can just send the check back, or there is a way to repay them if you get the money through direct deposit.
Interesting. It's like they're giving you the chance to fess up to lying on your application.
Well, the reality is sometimes it's not very cut and dry, right? Some people still receive income. And in the past, they were saying you have to stop working completely. But some people are, for example, real estate agents, they still work, but they are not getting any income at all. They would be doing, maybe they would be writing blog posts, they would be doing seminars, they would be doing Facebook ads, but they are not generating any revenue. Those are like borderline gray area case. So those would be where it is up for interpretation or / audit would come down to, right?
Cool. Somebody had a good question that we didn't really touch on. So from an investor standpoint, I guess really the question is rental income considered income in general when factoring in the CRB?
Great question, because I got quite a few of these questions. It really depends. For a typical regular investors who own all your rental properties in your personal name, and it depends on how you file it as well. If you just file everything under your rental income, which is a special form called T776 in your personal tax return, technically, if you lost those income, you are not qualified to claim CRB at all. Now, let's say you are an investor and you are a full-time investor. That's your only income source. But you also somehow, for some reason, your accountant in the past you charge your own property a property management fee. Now, remember, keep in mind that this is just realistically moving one number from another side. Instead of right pocket, left pocket, you still get taxed the same way. If for whatever reason your accountant in the past had moved from one side to another, then you would be able to, and you reported over $5,000 of income in previous year, self-employed income, in your 2019 return, then you would then be able to qualify to claim the CERB benefit. Now, the third case is, hey, you're a full-time real estate investor, and you have everything in the corporation. And I have one case that's like that. Everything is in the corporation. Husband doesn't work. The corporation, husband doesn't work as in husband works for the business all the time, does all the renovation and everything, take care of all the properties. And so the corporation always pays the husband a salary to take money out and to maximize the tax benefits. And so the corporation would then, because they qualify for more than, so they pay the husband more than $20,000, the corporation would then qualify to claim the $40,000 loan. And because the corporation is running into problem collecting rent, unable to pay any salary to the husband now has no salary. Then the husband would also be able to qualify to claim the $2,000 benefit. Now that's why it's so hard to give you one standard answer to everything, essentially.
There's so many different scenarios, right?
Exactly.
What about the most basic scenario? The investor that has a full-time job, but they own one rental property, and that rental property cash flows $1,000 a month, and it continues to cash flow $1,000 a month, but they're not bringing in any of their job income. Does that $1,000 a month disqualify them for the CERB?
Yeah, so that CERB is based on employment income and self-employed income.
Okay.
If there is no employment income or self-employment income, they would continue to qualify.
Gotcha. So because it's not employment income, it's rental income, it's treated separately, so they would still qualify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Lynn going back to the student relief that's available. Does that also apply to international students?
I don't know. I don't think so. I have not been able to track that down, whether it applies to international students or not. It says it's applied to post-secondary school students that normally work in Canada. So if you go with that and the student always work in Canada under certain criteria, then certain international, and they file their taxes, certain international students would qualify.
Right, but if they weren't working, then they probably doesn't apply.
Yeah, if you've never worked in Canada and doesn't file your taxes in Canada, they don't even have a record of you. in CRA's
Exactly.
website. Don't forget that you're also applying through your CRA website, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Joel actually has a good question. I'm not sure if it's his or from somebody else, but for small business landlords, if your tenant said that they were having issues paying rent and you agreed to a payment plan, was there a proper way to report that on taxes, or is it something as simple as, you know, just declaring rental income for just the month that it was received and then additional later on? I'm wondering if that repayment plan crosses over tax years.
If it crosses over the tax year, so depending on how you word it, technically you're required to report the full month of rent, and it's just when you're going to get the money, because technically you've earned the money. You're just working a payment plan with that person. That's completely different from like, hey, I'm waiving the rent, and then in the future I increase the rent. So technically you're supposed to report the income, and in a perfect situation, if it cross over, by the time that you really need to pay for the tax on this particular arrangement, it will be long past the current situation. You would have already received majority of your arrangement, your rent arrangement, hopefully.
Right. And I'm guessing in a regular situation, I think the way that I understand it is if you didn't get rent today, so say May 1st, and your tenant didn't pay you, but you arranged to say, you know, an extra $200 a month for the next 10 months, however long it takes to pay back, you just show no income for the month of May, and then you just show the extra $200 a month as income received for June, July, August, whatever, until it's paid back.
No, well, technically it's the other way around. So you still show the May rent, and yeah, you still show the May rent, and then with an arrangement, like agreement, at least some sort of an email support that you guys acknowledge the arrangement, you report the May rent in 2020.
Oh, okay.
You have to receive it.
Interesting.
Now, there is something that you would need to be cautious about, especially for small business landlord out there. Small business, like commercial landlord out there, there is HST impact. If you do allow the company your tenant to defer it, you would still be liable to pay for the HST, even though you don't get the money until much later.
Good point. Yeah. All right. So there's another new question that just came in. So I'm not sure if we've already mentioned it. Do we know when this? Oh yeah, we did talk about that. So they're asking when CRB was going to be available too, and I think we had said it was going to be September. But he did bring up a good point. If the stay-at-home policy is lifted, will CRB be taken away, or is it definitely 100% was going to be available September no matter what?
I think they have already announced all the periods that are available for application. I don't think they are going to take it away. Let me just quickly look up the period that's available, because I have a screenshot here. The CRB is available for a total number of 7 full week periods. So starting from March 15 to April 11th, and then April 12 to May 9th, and then all the way to August 30th to September 26th. I think the government already knows that the impact of COVID-19 lockdown is way beyond just like the few months. And so they know that people are not going to be rehired back. We get back to the work as quickly as everyone thinks it would be. So they already plan it ahead, and they're not going. I don't think they would go. They would cancel the program. Now, it's worthwhile mentioning that a 75% wage subsidy program is only available for 3 periods, pretty much until end of May. Now, if the Parliament passed a bill to approve this program, and it also approved the right to allow the government to extend this wage subsidy all the way to September, if they ever need to, if they ever decide to. Right now, it's only available for the period from March 15 all the way to June 6th. But if it is, the impact is way beyond what they initially planned, so the government can just come out to extend the program. So I do believe that the programs will be available as a minimum to whatever day that they are publicly announced, but they have the flexibility to extend the program if they want to.
Right. Well, I think they needed to do that because of so much uncertainty in the air, right? Like there's, one consensus that thinks that everything's going to be back to normal middle of May. And then even if the lockdown is, lightened a little bit, I think there's still going to be a lot of small businesses that stay closed or are going to be unable to reopen, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Cool. Okay. So I think we covered most of the main topics. Is there anything else you think that we need to cover? Any other questions you've been getting a lot of from your clients that, something that we didn't touch upon today?
Some people ask the question if they could backdate their salary. The answer is no. You can't just go back to backdate your salary or repay yourself T4. Doesn't work. You're taking a lot of risk just to qualify for $40,000, and sometimes it's not worth it. So that's the biggest question that I get.
I'm guessing that's for small business owners that are paying themselves, right? They wanted to say that, defer it or go back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So if that's it, maybe we can kind of wrap it up. Just a reminder for anybody that hasn't answered the poll's still there. So I think it's just 4 questions. Cherry, do you want to share your how people can get in touch with you or your website so that if they have any additional questions?
So my website is realestatetextips.ca, realestatetextips.ca. I do have some blog posts on my site that's about these programs available. If you want to go there and get a better understanding, it would be great. I am releasing a blog post on Monday as well about the new programs as well, because all these programs are changed by the minute. Something that you guys can stay in touch with me as well. I am hoping to get you guys on my list as well. Hopefully we can go from there.
Very cool. And again, if there's anybody that just, if there's something specific that didn't get answered today, or you're looking for either myself or someone from our team or Cherry to get back to you as part of the poll, there's a question there that says, would you like someone to get in touch with you? Well, there's a couple of you that I've seen that have said yes. So we'll be in touch in the next 24 hours. But other than that, I think we're going to call it a day.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cherry, for sharing all your wealth of knowledge.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.